Are you prepared to break free from the conventional notions of luxury and wealth? Unlock the secrets to managing and growing family wealth while preserving legacy. Welcome to Beyond Wealth.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond Wealth, Innovating for Life Elevation. Today we're excited to have Rebecca Cowley here to discuss her expertise across family office operations, legacy preservations, as well as her insights to some of the tax and legal strategies and frameworks that she's employed over her career. Her insights, I believe, are going to cover many facets of family offices, which is going to make for a wonderful conversation today. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, I always like to kind of start with a, just a rundown. So if you could kind of share your company, your role, how long you've been in that position, that would be great.
Sure. I'm at Andersen, and I'm a managing director here in the Family Office Solutions Group. I've only been here since March. I transitioned my company into Andersen after partnering with them for the last 5.5 years on multiple client engagements, and they wanted to add more services to their family office group. So we're here now.
Wonderful. And is it just yourself, or do you have a team that you work with?
I brought over my director from my old company, EFO, and then we work almost always with some of the tax and private accounting partners. So we have private accounting services that, works for family offices as their back office and outsourced CFO solution. I'd say we are probably partnering with them 80% of the time. And then tax, maybe 60%. The other groups, because we're so new, we haven't quite integrated yet, but there's worldwide, there's about 17,000 people and 2,000 partners globally. We're in 170 countries with like 475 locations. So we have access across the globe for our family office clients, which sets us apart from a lot of the firms. And just in case you don't have history on what Andersen is, we broke out of Arthur Andersen after they went under in the early 2000s, a group of 23 partners in the private client services group, which addresses high net worth tax, ultra high net worth tax issues, started their own firm under a different name, WTAS. And then I think about 10 years ago, maybe 12, they brought back the Andersen name for more brand recognition and have continued to grow. So from 23 partners to over 200 here in the US, and then globally, like I said, about 2,000.
That's amazing. And, I love that background, much appreciated. One of my favorite things, though, is getting to have our listeners learn more about our guests. So I'd love for you to be able to kind of share your background, how you got to this role and maybe any inspiring moments along the way that led here.
Yeah, sure. So out of school, I worked at KPMG, started off, at the time it was the Big Five, worked in the forensic and litigation services practice, and we did all real estate litigation valuation. As one does in their 20s, I bopped around, decided after leaving KPMG, I went to a real estate developer as an analyst, which couldn't have been, more boring, and decided to get into catering and event planning, total, change of direction. And that was actually what brought me into family office. So I was hired in the early 2000s for a large tech founder to manage in-house their wedding. And along the way I was about the third hire for the family office. In the office itself, we had other staff, but took on an operations role. That was probably, one pivotal moment in my career. So at that time, I very quickly learned, a lot about the legal structuring. We weren't doing any tax structuring at that time, and we really weren't doing any investment in-house, a tiny bit. It was later that the office started doing, becoming more of what it is today. I left that office after just under 4 years to take a break. It was a lot of work in 3.5 years. And along the way, worked within the family office industry, doing some consulting, helped a friend start a corporate aviation company, wanting to take a break from family office. And then the same tech founders announced that they were separating, one of them, and the wife asked me to come start her office. So I'd say that was the position where I learned the most. I was given the opportunity to come in and create a family office from scratch and really use all of the things that I had learned along the way that I didn't feel like were ideal. And I think my predecessors at the other office really didn't know what the stock was going to do for this particular family. And I think it was wildly more successful than anyone ever imagined. And so some of the things that were put in place just weren't the right caliber for how much money that office was going to be worth. And so in founding that office, I had the opportunity to have an entirely new advisory team, legal, tax, real estate, philanthropy, all of the things, and gained more knowledge than I think, I could have gained in any MBA program. Did that for about 4 years. And after having my daughter, decided to take a break, took about a year off, and then started a consulting firm that focused entirely on family office operations. I found there was no shortage of people that needed help trying to figure out, once you've got the structure in place and as you're building out your family office, how do you run that office effectively with the right amount of people? So we focus on the people, the process, procedure, controls, technology to an extent, and then the data management, like who needs to know what and when and why, and like making sure that that data is shared efficiently across, whether your team is internal or a combination of the two. So yeah, those two roles were huge for me. Had my company for about 5.5 years, and along the way, I had met some partners at Andersen, both in tax and private accounting. And we ended up putting them into pretty much every RFP that we had a chance, along with other firms. And lo and behold, Andersen won pretty much every single one. And so we developed a really close relationship and determined that, a lot of the functions where families and what I had been used to building in a single family office, having everything internal. Now there's all of these professionals and services, here at Andersen and other places, but I obviously think Andersen is the best, where you can outsource a vast majority of your team, accounting, obviously tax, most people outsource that. But in our group, mine specifically is operations centric. So we determined it was definitely, doable to outsource a lot of the work that needs to go on within. And so we, in discussions made the choice to come over here.
That's a wonderful journey, and I love the authenticity there that you've shared. For our listeners that may think that the family office space is a finite space, which it is something that you mentioned, Rebecca. There are not enough great people to help this space. Like there's, you can basically come into this space, and I believe in a non-competition environment because there's just too many people to help and not enough qualified people to actually be able to provide services. So I love the fact that you've been able to, take what you've built and then bring it to an organization that can help expand on that. And when it comes to, a lot of family offices that I've, worked with and spoken to over the past 12, 15 years is, the idea of starting your own family office may sound great, but it is a ton of work. The family office space has really evolved. And so, I'm just kind of, what's some of the evolution that you've seen, and changes in over the past, I'd really say like the last 20 years in the family office space that might not have been there, prior to it?
No, I'd say 20 years ago, was about when I started the very first family office that I worked for. Really, the very first one was probably in 2001. But at the time, I didn't really know what a family office was. I now recognize that the people I was working for, like, more than likely had a much bigger organization than what I was doing for them. But a true family office that I ended up working for in 2004 was a third generation family that everyone would recognize the name, out of Chicago. And, there was really nothing available. I remember, when I started in 2007 for this tech founder, just trying to find information online, and it was very limited. You get a couple hits, right, if you typed in family office. But there wasn't, definitely not any professional services out there touting themselves as family office experts or even having the services. I would say maybe like 10 years ago, it started to get more and more common to be using, the phrase. And then now, if you Google it, it's everywhere. And there are countless firms that, do family office services in different capacities, whether they're combined with an investment advisory firm or they're just doing outsourced, what we call family office services, which is the accounting, the trust and estate, planning and oversight, governance, and all of those other things. But yeah, I would say in the last 10 years, in the last 5, it's completely, exponentially multiplied the number of people that are aware. And I think also there's been kind of mainstream publications that have published stories about billionaires' family offices. And so it then has become kind of a known phrase just with anyone who might work, in the financial sector, but, or outside of it. But yeah, it's definitely, and I also see a lot of colleagues who worked within family offices who, for various different reasons, have decided that a single family office, isn't where they want to be. And similar to myself, have taken their expertise and their experiences and are bringing it to firms like this, which I think we often talk about. There's almost like a shorthand, like a short speak. When you've worked within, you understand things work differently when you're inside one of these offices, because while it is a startup and it's a company, sometimes there can be emotional decision-making that, you wouldn't make in a fully operating, revenue, producing company. You're going to make decisions based on what the family wants, and there needs to be a level of flexibility and thinking outside the box that allow people to be successful in these roles. But I will say the industry as a whole, because of the different tax structures and different legal structures that benefit, these families, they're definitely becoming more professionalized. And here at Andersen, I know we bring on new tax clients daily who are looking to, optimize their tax strategy. So that is definitely something that was definitely not around 20 years ago that I knew of. And even 10 years ago, it was kind of in its infancy and then started, taking off.
Yeah. And it's, and then you add into that, a lot of single and multifamily offices are also trying to help with the fulfillment side and all the asset management, which is a whole nother job. And you talk about the importance of what you guys are doing at Andersen, which I 100% endorse and agree with, which is, there's so many services within a family office ecosystem that having just one person doing one thing, it's almost levels of impossible to actually keep up with the amount of change that's happening within legal or tax or governance or, certain things like maybe your constitution only need to get changed, once every 5 to 10 years. But all these other things are very, very fast moving parts. You mentioned the data security and the access controls that are vitally important to the success of any family. And it's a breath of fresh air to be able to actually know that now there's proper multifamily offices. They're not just a tier 1 support with a bunch of partners behind them, but they're actually bringing things in-house with targeted groups of experts that can then keep up with and now really, provide the depth and knowledge that you really need to keep up with how fast things are moving in today's world.
Yeah, for sure. I think, Andersen, on the tax side is, years in advance of our competitors, especially with our USNT group that is, a group of tax specialists. So if you need aviation help, philanthropy, we've got our tax partners that work with our clients on, tax strategy and compliance, but then we have these specialty groups that they're watching and they're seeing, what's going on, at the government level, and really making sure that our clients understand and are addressing any of these upcoming changes or, potential changes. They're thinking ahead as all of these things, especially in an election year, and we don't know, what's going to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's great to hear, because one of the things that I found, and as you're talking, I'm hearing, is that, when you start to get to a point when you're really looking at very specific things, that you've done a good job for the bigger picture things, where, you might be focused on how can you, watch currency exchange rates as you're helping your clients pay for international interests and assets that they may own. It's like, those are the type of niche things that once you get to that point, you've built on a great foundation, because that's the only way that I've seen, companies like Andersen and yourself be able to really get to that point. So it sounds like you guys are there and definitely kind of ahead. When it comes to some of, your background, kind of at that executive level with a single family office, and now, as an individual, an entrepreneur offering some of the advisory services that you did, there's a big challenge that comes with kind of balancing that oversight while still trying to deliver all these bespoke offerings. What are some of the kind of the challenges and tactics that you take to help your clients, especially like people that may be new to the family office space, and helping kind of guide them in their experience as you're taking them on a journey, if you will, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think the main thing that we try and help our clients with is the extra lift. Most people will start off kind of organically, hiring a couple people they might do it themselves. They're doing a few things, and it's rare that someone, now I think it happens more, but I think in the past it was rare that someone came into their wealth event and then said, I'm starting a tax structured family office. It just was like, let's hire a couple people, do some direct investments, had someone else managing the overall portfolio. But I think, one of the biggest things we try to impress upon the families is hiring a couple people isn't necessarily going to give you, the best operation and the most efficient operation, nor does it address, succession at the staff level. But having professionals like ourselves that can be the heavy lift for you on the side and keep projects going instead of tasking your internal team with it, because I myself have had to do this internally. You have a full-time, sometimes more than full-time job working in one of these family offices. And then when you get tasked with implementing a new, accounting software or a new investment software, that is not something you can do while you're running the family office. And so, we like to present ourselves as part of your team, but we're that extra piece where you can keep running the family office, and we will, be the quarterback of running all of these projects for you, regardless of what it is. And then also just trying to share, across our network, if we think, if there's something we don't actually do here, we want to make sure that we're connecting them with the right people to make sure that they're able to move things forward. But yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is staffing these offices, appropriately, and then being able to tackle the amount of work, because there is so much change, and regular additions to people's, daily responsibilities.
Yeah, and so then one of the big shifts, right, is like we're also seeing a lot of maybe single family offices that are now migrating over to a multifamily office, and they may be keeping some of their staff maybe on the assistant side or the property and estate side. Are you seeing a lot of that as well? Like helping single families kind of up level their game, and then kind of figuring out like you have all these tools at your firm, but not every tool is for every family, and some things may be right to kind of keep with their single family and more or less simplify their internal operations and start bringing some things over. Is that something that you're seeing more and more of today?
Yeah, I think there's less appetite to build a massive single family office. And because of the evolution and the influx of professional services, you're able to, whether you want to call it a multifamily office or a hybridized family office, you're able to kind of have the best of both worlds. And which is, actually why I'm here at Andersen building this practice, is because that's where we see it going. I don't see people wanting to, necessarily bring in massive accounting teams, and even in investment, like they might have a few, like I said, doing directs, that the family is getting deal flow and they're doing it internally, but then the larger portfolio is outside, with a smaller firm or a large bank. But yeah, we're definitely seeing that transition. And I think also as families become more sophisticated and also, get older, they don't really want that undertaking. We have a few clients here who had entire, accounting departments and, maybe 10 people, 12 people, and ended up winding it down and bringing it over here. And it's something that I learned working with Andersen. Had you asked me 10 years ago when I was starting that family office, I would have said, yeah, bring everyone in-house. You have, they're right next door. You need a wire sent, you need whatever, but then after I worked with Andersen on my first engagement, I realized the level of talent and understanding of, the ecosystem as a whole was so much greater because they're working across so many different family offices. And now with, some of the incredible technologies that we have, I didn't need them next door. It was like they were next door, and worked on my team. But again, like you said, the foundation, if you're setting it up correctly and the right channels of communication are happening, everyone can make these things happen. I would say at the, the non-investment asset management, like homes, planes, boats, those kind of things, you need boots on the ground. But I think largely the administrative side of the office can now be done, either at the multifamily office level or hybrid.
Yeah, and one thing that we usually do in our recap after we're done recording is I'll share my favorite part of the episode, but I'm going to share that with the world today because my favorite thing that you just said was a hybrid family office. I actually think that I love that the most because that's most likely the right thing for a lot of families around the world, which is, getting good advice from, yourself or your firm, and then being able to figure out with them what are the things that really should be on their side versus the things that should not be. And, you talk about like trying to create and carry these things. A family office done really well and in a single capacity it's a lot to carry financially. And so, being able to kind of create this hybrid family office, that in my opinion, that's probably going to be right like 90% of the time, right? Some people may want to just nothing,
sure.
but most families have things that are really important to them. And so like in your, you've got all these tools, but I imagine that you guys have a discovery process up front that you're able to kind of learn those things and then help best advise them so that they end up with kind of the lifestyle and the legacy preservation and all of the things that they need to do well, done in a way that kind of fits their eye.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We start kind of like a 3-phased approach where we're doing like a diagnostic assessment of, what is happening currently, what do they have in place, who are the people they have in place. We try and respect the advisory relationships that they have, especially if they're long-standing. If we feel that someone has outgrown one of their advisors, we want to make sure that we're not, disrespecting the history that has happened there and the help that has been given to date. So then we want to find, how can we work this person in, whether it's your CPA that, just like you IPO'd overnight for $5 billion and this person's, biggest client is 50 million. We obviously want you to start working with someone who services billionaires, but we also respect the fact that you've been working with this person for 20 years. So how can we integrate them and make them part of maybe an advisory board or something like that? But yeah, I think, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, we're gonna have to redo that. What were we just talking about?
No worry. No, just that, I had
the
asked
hybridized,
about hybridized family office and being able to, go, you were describing your three-phase process for helping figure that out.
Yeah. So like diagnostic assessment, where we check out, everything that's going on. And then we also want to look at like future. If someone knows they're going to have like a secondary or tertiary wealth event with stock options, or, they've sold a portion of their company or one of their companies, and we know that more is coming down the line, how do we prepare for that? And then, I'm not going to really speak to tax because I'm not a tax professional despite working for a tax firm, but I leave that to our tax partners. But there are things that the earlier you start talking to one of our partners about these different things, these different tax structures, QSBS, there are only ways to capture these strategies if you've done it very early. So there's certain changes that you don't want to make where then you can no longer take advantage of this. So, I think even just having the information and knowledge that like being prepared and not waiting until it's done. And I think that people in the industry, different, the RIAs are also picking up on this, and they understand that, we better get them in front of tax early just to make sure. And I think everyone is getting a lot better at that instead of coming at it later, and then it's too late to take advantage of some of these things. But secondary, after we do this assessment, we'll give a blueprint or a roadmap to what we think it looks like, phased depending on how the family, how quickly they want to do it, or what's even possible for them to do in however many months or years. And then in thinking of future planning around, children or succession planning, we'll integrate that into the plan. And then there's the implementation side, where traditionally, like what we've done on my team is act as either, like I said, the heavy lift to your family office that is already existing, or if you don't have anything in place, we act as your interim C-suite, and we're quarterbacking all of these things to make sure that they happen. And I think one of the benefits of using us is, one, we've done it multiple times, so we know like the pitfalls and the the roadblocks that we're going to hit that we want to avoid completely. So we can usually get it set up a lot faster. We have the people behind us setting up the technologies and getting these things working. And then should you decide to stay with Andersen for in whatever capacity, whether, obviously I said tax is always mostly outsourced, but if you want to stay with us on the accounting side or have us do, an outsourced COO role, which is my group, we also do recruiting. So if you have decided at that point, you want to build out like mostly a single family office because we have been your family office, we then replace ourselves by doing the search for you. So that model has worked really well for a lot of families. It's like, instead of going to a recruiter that, one, has never worked in a family office, or two, doesn't know you as well as someone that's actually been operating, the hiring process is often a lot faster. And again, that like kind of shorthand, short speak, because we understand, who's going to work within, has been a great model for us. So,
yeah. And in a perfect world, you start early if you know something's coming, but in most cases, and just to relieve anybody that might be in a position where they're, either thinking about or in need of a family office, it really doesn't matter where you are in that journey, whether you got there early or you get there a little bit later. Because, Rebecca, your approach of relationship first and then building a framework out where you could take everything on, you could take on some, you could replace yourself later. You kind of have a future-proofed methodology that you're able to provide all of your clients with. That at the end of the day, you're putting them first. And, one thing that matters the most to me and to a lot of our listeners is the fact that, the best people care the most about the people that they're serving, regardless of what service they're providing. So I love that you're doing that holistically at a level that is, very, very important for these families when it comes to kind of that preservation. And one of the things I was going to ask you is kind of some of the, things, across your expertise that are contributing to kind of this holistic approach and managing and safeguarding that family's legacy. You kind of just proactively answered that with, everything that you just mentioned. And I feel like, that means that you're going to end up having a great relationship. You're going to enjoy it. They're going to enjoy it. And you're just giving them flexibility and information to make really informed and educated decisions as they're, starting this part of their journey.
Yeah. I had the great fortune of working with this IT firm starting like 20 years ago and almost 20 years ago. And their mentality was always everything should be plug and play. So like if you decide one day you don't like us, you pull us out of the network, you pull us out of whatever, and then you get your new provider. And I think that thought process and taking care of your client in that way is what we try and do. So we don't, and this has happened to me in family offices, whether it's internal staff or external advisors with like a custom, proprietary software that you're like locked in, and you don't want to be locked in when a service, like maybe the service level goes down and then you've got this whole software set up and you're like, oh my God, I can't get out of here. And it's painful. So we always want to make sure that anything that we're doing is plug and play. We obviously want to maintain the relationship long-term and be your provider. But for whatever reason, should you decide to leave, maybe you want to start a big single family office for whatever reason, we want to make sure you can we pull ourselves out and we can transition easily. So yeah, I would say the experience that myself and my director, Ben Bokich, had from working internally really has given us the client first and also the candidate first. Like when we do recruiting, but because we went through, maybe some not great experiences, we're a little bit different where we want to make sure that everything is transparent. And we understand that no situation is perfect. So we want to be able to call out, hey, this might be something that you don't enjoy. Is this something you can deal with? Instead of withholding it and saying like, this is the best job ever. It's the same thing for the families. Like we want to say like, okay, here's the different firms that we recommend working with, or the different processes, softwares. Here's the pitfalls. Here's the positives. This is what we might run into, and let them make the decision. So we're not often making decisions for our clients, but we want to give them all of the information instead of selling them on something. I hear stories all the time about these, integrated accounting systems for family office that, they were sold it can do all of these things, which it totally can. But can you implement it, and can someone do that for you? And then the frustration is so great, and the whether they ever get it working or not, they've wasted months and a lot of money. And, same thing goes for people. You don't want to have a bad placement and then have to start over again. So we really try and come with client first before we do anything.
Yeah, and that resonates with me because similarly to yourself, I was in a venture where I was, the service provider, and I had clients, and I knew that relationship. I experienced all of the good and the bad there, and some of those pain points and what a solution would really look like. So that has served me really well. That served our company really well today, because understanding what our client's client is going through and looking for the right people to serve their needs and partners, it's exponentially easier because I was actually in the position, and so being able to help those that you used to be becomes really easy because you have all that experience, and sounds like you're benefiting from that today. So just want to maybe switch gears real quick, and one of the things I'm always fascinated about and excited to learn is, how do you personally go beyond wealth, and how do you, take care of yourself, mentally, emotionally, physically, outside of, what is a very demanding industry and space that you're serving in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, on top of what I do, I'm a single parent. So there's a lot of, added stuff after work. I would say I try and spend a lot of time with our family. My parents are about an hour away. So leaning on them, for extra support. We have a great network of friends where we live. And because I live in such a beautiful place, Marin, there is a lot of hiking. There's a trail literally 5 minutes from my front door. So, trying to get outdoors, enjoy the environment as much as possible. I'd say I do a lot of reading. I try and cook, I enjoy doing that. And that kind of it's like a calming practice for me to, get all the things organized, make this beautiful dinner or whatever I'm doing, and then clean it all up. And it's like a real easy way to feel accomplished. But yeah, I'm constantly doing research on, kind of hacking life and health. So trying to read as much as possible and take advantage of, some of the interesting doctors and places that we have here in the Bay Area out of Stanford and other organizations where, I feel like with people like Andrew Humerman and, Peter Attia is not here, but like following people like that, and Dr. Stacy Sims, who focuses on women's health and fitness. But yeah, just always trying to kind of hack the human body is big.
Awesome. And Rebecca, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Sure.
Online?
I am in our San Francisco office. You can find me on our Andersen.com website, Rebecca Cowley, Cowley. Email rebecca.cowley@andersen.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. You can email me. I can share my phone number, all of it. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today. And for our listeners out there, hopefully you've enjoyed learning from Rebecca and all of her wonderful insights and perspective on the family office operations, legacy preservations, and framework that she's able to help families really find success, both near and long term. So Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciated the time together.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you found this conversation valuable, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform or watch the conversion unfold on our YouTube channel @EstateSpace. We will see you next time on Beyond Wealth.